Orgasmic proportions. Balotelli. Aguero. Manchester United have reached the promised land. This is absolutely astonishing.
And go away, the snow. Oh, how we want it to go away. You are listening to the other football on 89.1 FM. Yeah, well, I do. We'll get to the snow in a moment because the snow is a topic in and of itself. But as always, I'm Justin Block today, joined by, as always, the one and only
Rohtas Wadera.
And we are here to chop it up about the week's Premier League action.
We're back, one of our last Monday.
Yeah, this
shows.
is one of our last Monday shows. The cheap seats graciously seated us the Monday afternoon slot during January while they were off in Florida or wherever they were. And now that the semester is back again at NYU, although
you wouldn't know much about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't know much about that one because I'm graduated. That's what's up. That's right. I'm out of debt. I'm out of your face. I'm out of professors' faces. I'm done. But also, NYU's canceled tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, so I don't have class.
Right. So I guess the cheap seats, if you're still on vacation, guys, somewhere, you guys probably don't have a flight to New York. Stay where you are. Unless you want us to take over for Mondays from here on until forever. We'll be glad to do that because this week, like every other week, we have lots of Premier League news going on. Rohtas, what? I mean, there wasn't even Premier League this weekend, though, but we're still going to talk about Premier League because there is football in England.
There was plenty of it.
Yep.
But, I would have to say it's unfortunate that, it comes to this part of the season, because teams do have to take a break from that conglomerate of fixtures that they have around the holiday time.
Yeah, so the FA Cup and the League Cup seasons, it's a chance for managers to rotate their squad, although we saw a lot of managers just not rotate their squad in certain situations. But this is kind of like the breathe in, breathe out period where you're right. There was that sort of fixture congestion that we had in December and the beginning of January, and now before February. And when spring comes and the ice melts, that's when champions are decided.
Yes, and in all forms, there's a Champions League coming back soon as well. So a lot to look forward to.
All right, so Rohtas, what happened in the FA Cup weekend? Let's start with that because there was no Premier League football this past weekend. There was all FA Cup action. And from what we know and what we saw, everyone just lost.
Yeah, some big-time names. And we were waiting because it seemed as if like...
Oh, the magic of the FA Cup. It strikes every year.
Yeah, it does. United, I think, had a 0-0 draw with Cambridge United.
Ew.
In their match, a 0-0 draw. I would glad I didn't watch that. Chelsea lost to Bradford City, I believe, 4-2.
Yeah. So let's go over all the big losses this weekend. So we had Man City losing to Middlesbrough 2-0. We had Tottenham losing to Leicester City.
The Borough, they could be back.
Yep, 2-1. Who else did we have? Leicester. Chelsea lost to the Bantams.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
The Bantams. I could have sworn it was Bradford City.
Yeah, it is Bradford
City.
Okay. But
why
Chelsea
is
lost
that on Google? It shouldn't be. It should just say Bradford City on Google.
Obviously, because Bradford City's SEO is wicked, and they get to have their team nicknames as their team names on Google Images.
Yeah.
It's like instead of Daniel Owen, it's Danny Whizbang.
Right. Oh
Okay.
wow. Peaky Blinders.
Speaking of Peaky Blinders, we also had how did the Birmingham clubs do this weekend? Oh, Birmingham lost to West Brom. Aston Villa actually beat Bournemouth. But getting back to the teams that lost, the big teams, we also saw Arsenal. Arsenal lost to Brighton this weekend.
Wow.
And was that it?
No, well, Leicester beat Tottenham 2-1.
Right, we went over that. So, and then the big draws were Cambridge and Liverpool both.
And then you're looking at
drawing
a team that's been number one in the form guide, Southampton, losing to Alan Pardew and Crystal Palace.
Wow.
3-2. So.
Okay, so the next set of FA Cup games will actually be next week, and we'll have Fulham, Sunderland, Sheffield United, Preston, Manchester United, and Cambridge United.
All the replays.
Cambridge United.
Yeah, all
Cambridge United.
This is going to be like watching Peaky Blinders has been the worst thing.
Yeah. If you guys hear just any terrible British accents coming out of us during the show, it's just we've been binge watching Peaky Blinders, so it's
are they really that bad? I don't think.
Can I do a Peaky Blinders blast? Peaky Blinders. Okay, I just need to get that out of my system. I'm sorry. There's no way I could talk about an English sport without thinking about Peaky Blinders. See, it came out again. It's not even good.
Shelby. It's just their names.
It is.
All right, so a lot going on. those are the replays, right? Those
No, I'm
are
sorry.
going to be played.
Arsenal lost. I mean, won last weekend.
Arsenal won.
Yeah.
They beat Brighton.
Yeah. As Greg Vizone, our resident viewer, has graciously alerted me, Arsenal won.
Yes, that's correct. Greg's always looking out.
Yeah, sometimes Google's wrong too.
Right.
But the next set of FA Cup matches, and then following those three that I described, Bolton Liverpool happened on Wednesday, and then the rest.
What was that? 1-1 or was it?
Yeah. I mean, how many more rounds do we have to go with this crap, man?
So many. I always remember playing in FIFA when you go through the FA Cup, it's like round 6, and I'm like, okay, so we're not at
did you ever have to go to the Europa League in FIFA Dynasty mode?
No.
So yeah, with the Europa League, it's like 56 rounds or something. It's ridiculous. Like you start playing in July, and then the finals happen in May.
Yeah.
So for the Europa League, you have 2 months of off season. Believe it or not.
Wow.
Anyway, but all those teams, all those big teams lost in the FA Cup. Rohtas, do you think it really makes that big of a difference to them going on in the season? Because you see all these big teams get upset by little teams, and you think, oh man, that's a confidence boost for the next game for these little guys. But does it honestly matter?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It doesn't. It's just like, no team is going to come out and say, oh, we didn't put out our best team, or we don't want to win the trophy. Right. But at the same time, they'll be happy.
That's exactly what happened.
They'll take it. They'll be like, all right, one less competition to worry about. We can give our guys a little bit more rest for things that are more important.
And from the perspective of an American viewer of the English Premier League, and as an American viewer, meaning someone who likely adopted a team who's actually good and has a chance of winning things sometimes. These games for the Bradford Cities and Middlesbroughs of the world,
and Blackburn beat Swansea as well.
Yeah, these middle of the table or even lower than that sides that are getting these big wins against these big teams, that makes a huge difference for them. It
Absolutely,
does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really for the fans, if anything. That's what the FA Cup and the League Cup are for, in my opinion. It's for the managers of big clubs to get all mustered about because they want to win a trophy. But really, it's for these lower clubs to have a chance at winning something, or else the feudal system doesn't make sense, right?
Exactly. I know we've both seen that movie, The Damned United, which is, documents Peter Clough and his time at Nottingham, at Leeds United, and where was he before that? Which team? But Derby County.
Yeah.
And basically how the little club, his ground was so small, and how they pulled Leeds United at the time, the best team in England.
Yeah.
And
that was when you could actually, win something in England without spending to win.
Exactly. Just you could see the care and just what it means when a big name club comes to your stomping ground, to your stadium. It's just
a huge deal.
It's just huge for the town economically.
Yeah, and
it creates a buzz, brings everybody together, and it's a great time when you're a Cambridge United and you can, or a Bolton. Well, Bolton's actually not really, but when you're a Cambridge United and you could go have a 0-0 game with United, who did put out some pretty good players on the pitch as well. So
to me, this is like, imagine if Major League Baseball opened up their entire, once a year, all the big Major League teams compete, but then there's also some sort of weird competition with all the minor league teams.
Exactly.
Where they all go through this roundabout 10-month competition to get a trophy that everyone forgets about the next year. Exactly.
It's like the FA Cup is more Cinderella story than any other competition almost in the world when you think about it, because there's such few events that have such a gulf and gap in quality, in money, in everything else.
Yep.
You really can't find another sport that's going to pit two teams that are vast.
You're right, because
the quantity gap is so vast.
This is the only sport, and probably one of the only competitions within sport, where you can legitimately have a player on one team who gets paid £200,000 a week, and have a team who maybe gets paid £200,000 a week the entire week.
Yeah,
that's possible. That's genuinely possible with this competition.
And that's what makes
it so much fun. And that's the magic of the epic. Not to get too romantic, but that's the magic.
People talk about it's not fun. Come on, it's fun. If you don't like if you don't like the underdog, then you're just like.
It says the man wearing a Manchester United jersey with champions patches on it. Okay, Mr. Underdog.
Other than United, I always root for the other underdog. I always root for the underdog, man.
Are there underdogs we want to talk about today? Speaking of, there are a few.
Are there underdogs in the Premier League?
Can we speak on Southampton for a minute?
Yeah.
Because speaking of underdogs, they continue to be underdogs, and at a certain point, I was feeling See, this is how I feel about Southampton.
We talked about
we talk about them every single week, and I feel like every single week, and especially since November, we've been like, okay,
they're
going to fall. They're going to fall off. It's happening. They're going to lose depth. They're going to get an injury. Something's going to happen to where these guys are going to eventually slow down, right? But no, I mean, Southampton, although they're not first anymore, and they've slipped from second ever since they lost to Manchester City a few months ago, they're third in the league on 42 points right now, ahead of Manchester United by 2 points. And, look at the form guide. They've won their last 3 matches against Arsenal, Manchester United, and Newcastle.
Yeah,
they're first in the form guide. They've taken
stuff.
16 out of a possible 18 points from their last 6 matches. They've responded with, they had a difficult stretch where they lost a few games, they drew a few games, and we were thinking, okay, yeah, this is when everything gets back to normal.
Exactly.
That hasn't happened.
Yeah, it really has. It's been miraculous what Ronald Koeman's been able to do. And what's even more interesting is that based on how the wraparound schedule works, the festive period was probably their toughest period of fixtures. They had to play City, United, Arsenal, all in that span, maybe even Chelsea as well. They had to play them in that span. And now that they've completed that wraparound and that schedule is almost done, they will have to play, I think, Chelsea. But for the most part, the reason why they got in the top 4 was because they beat all the teams that they're supposed to beat. And now they're playing them again. So the opportunity is absolutely there for this team, a team that we really didn't think was going to be able to stick around. But this is a team that really, I think, has a tremendous opportunity. Koeman's just built this team up extremely well.
Do we need to take them seriously now?
I think we do.
Like super seriously?
Because
we've been taking them kind of a little bit more seriously with each passing week. But it's about to be February, and they're still sitting where they're sitting.
Yeah, I think this is more. It's just a shock because we know how much of how great the youth program is at Southampton and the players that they have produced. The list goes on.
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain,
Walcott, Bale,
Matt Letessier. This club has a good amount of history, particularly in its youth program. And speaking of, I know I told you this earlier. They actually upgraded their training facilities recently, and they're still doing it. They're spending millions and millions of pounds to modernize everything. Get statisticians in there, data analysts, biometric analysts in there.
Exactly.
Anything that is privy to what City or United or what a real modern football team has in terms of medical staff and data and training methods. Southampton's they're just buying for themselves.
And I think that's one of the biggest reasons.
Producing players that are selling.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Ronald Koeman came to Southampton in the first place, because he saw that vision that they have in terms of player development, and now it's led to players that he has coached against and coached with in the past from his days in the Dutch league and from around the world. And he's scouted him and his scouts and their treasurers, and whatever money that they've spent, they've allotted it perfectly to guys that have come from, like Victor Wanyama's come from Celtic in Scotland. And normally guys that come over from the Scottish Premiership really have not been able to produce.
Wanyama's a beast.
He is a big man, a beast. And then, Sadio Mane, Tadic, Pella, he's found just a variety of talent.
He has, and he still has Morgan Schneiderlin, Jack Court holding down the midfield.
Exactly, guys that were already there.
So you have a midfield that's very, very sound and that knows how to win the ball and distribute it to guys like Tadic, who know how to attack down the middle. I believe, out of all Southampton's attacks, the majority of them come down the middle of the pitch, and they're actually second in the league in crosses. So they like to win the ball in the middle of the pitch, strike it down in the middle of the pitch, find some combinations, and once you're near the byline, they'll whip it out wide and cross it in. And as a result, that's why they're one of the highest scoring teams in the league. I believe they're 4th in scoring overall. And this is an interesting stat I found today. Of all the teams that shoot from within the 18, meaning these are good shots, within the 18, center circle, right in, Southampton's actually second in the league in taking those shots to Manchester City. So they're taking good, efficient shots. They're not shooting at a very high percentage. I think they're 10th overall in shots total. But the shots that they're creating and that they're, putting themselves in a position to finish, they're just doing it because they're efficient, good shots to begin with. That can't be valued. That's invaluable to me when you have a team full of guys who know to only shoot when you're inside the 18, when you're in a good shooting area.
Absolutely.
To me, it's akin to in basketball where you tell a guy, okay, only shoot from within the paint or only take corner threes because those are the most efficient shots. Southampton takes efficient shots.
They take efficient shots. It's really, they're so complete on both sides of the ball because
they have the players to do it.
They have the players to do it. They've with the midfielders that we mentioned, they've been able to match the Premier League physicality.
Mm-hmm.
They've been able to defend. You watch them do it against Manchester United, which is how they took the lead over Manchester United with that 1-0 win. They have the best defensive record in the Premier League, but it looks like they've allowed the least amount of goals.
They still do.
16 goals allowed. I mean, it's extremely impressive.
I mean, we talked back in November about, I think they had only allowed like 11 league goals or something, and even actually might have been less than that. I can't remember the exact figure, but back then they actually had the best defensive record of any Premiership start through 12 games in the past 5 years, and that's only continued throughout these past 10 games. Their defense has stood strong.
It absolutely has. The addition of Fraser Forster from Celtic as well, another Scottish player, has been good. He's been pretty solid back there. And
they did pick up somebody in the transfer window, didn't they?
Right. Elaro Elia.
Oh, Elia.
Just another dimension to this team.
Ryan Babel Light, circa 2010.
Right,
he actually had a few World Cup finals appearances for that Dutch team that went all the way.
He did when Van Marwijk, I believe. He started at left back.
Yeah, he'd also come. He didn't start left back. It was
back.
Van Bronckhorst who started at left back, and Elia would just come on at the end of games as a change of pace kind of guy. I think he went to Juventus shortly afterwards, and he never really became more than just another fast guy on the left wing. But incorporated Southampton, they could always use speed down the wing with the way that they're so centrally loaded, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And who else happened in the January transfer window?
This
was kind of like.
But he still Elia gives them such a added dimension, that speedster,
sure.
And because you already have the big man in Pella, you already have the strong midfielders, and you have the playmaker in Tadic. Elia gave him a lift,
and Mane as well.
Yeah, Mane as well. So 2 goals from Elia to beat Newcastle in their last match, and Ronald Koeman hasn't really missed on a signing.
That's definitely a spark that they'll definitely see as valuable off the bench come down the stretch, because when you're chasing a goal 80, 70th minute, whatever, Elia, that burst of pace is going to be real valuable for them. But what other January transfer signings did we see? Because this was such a busy window,
Yeah, it kind of stinks that nothing nearly goes down.
Nothing cool happened. What happened last year?
Nothing cool. I mean, United splurged like they had to save the team. Bought Juan Mata, bought Marouane.
Oh, right. Last year, and then the year before that, I feel like Sturridge and Coutinho signed.
Right.
And then in previous years, we had the whole Andy Carroll, Fernando Torres thing happen. 5 years ago, I think even like Manchester City tried to sign Kaká for $100 million.
Ridiculous.
Crazy things can happen in January. Yeah. This January hasn't been as crazy.
Not at all.
What have been the crazy things that happened?
Well, I mean, we already touched on Wilfred Boney and what it means to. And they're still going to have to wait for him for a while because the African Cup of Nations is still ongoing. I've come to realize that you kind of have to wait for the knockout stages for it to turn into one of the better tournaments. Because,
Akon?
Yeah, because some of those games are very tough to see.
I said who Akon, like I'm talking about Akon, the
like when Burkina
legendary
Faso,
R&B singer.
Right, like when Burkina Faso plays Equatorial Guinea, the host nation, I can't watch that. And that was just my god.
We'll see when the big boys play against each other.
Exactly, that'll be more fun. Wilfred Boney put on a Ronaldinho-like move in the combination.
He didn't.
He did. You know how Ronaldinho does the snake where he fakes outside and then megs the guy?
Yeah.
He literally did that to a player.
Oh, holy hell, Boney. Okay.
I mean, that's serious. But yeah.
I mean, Man City.
That's the guy
Manchester City fans
right?
will
forked over
30 million quid.
Yeah, that's a lot.
30 million pounds for Wilfred Boney. So that's it about him. I mean, I guess finishing that point. Manchester City, if you could kindly please send over Frank Lampard by it doesn't have to be express mail. The season doesn't start for another few months, but send him back over. You guys are good. You bought your striker. Come on. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, because you mentioned the MLS, we had a pretty big signing.
There actually was some nice MLS EPL action going on here.
It's about time. I think this is a very interesting swap. I think it's a great move for both teams. Jermaine Defoe joining Sunderland. Now Josie Altidore is coming home.
No, to hell with that. It's like MLS had to pay the stamp tax to get Altidore back.
But
we should have kept Defoe and Altidore. MLS is its own country.
Come on. Every single American star is getting paid in what? At least $5 million a year.
You just wait until General Garber rises up and demands no taxation without representation from the Premiership.
Yeah.
You just wait.
I'm telling you, man.
But in all seriousness, Josie coming home was probably a good move.
It is a good move.
You can keep singing that song if you want.
I'm coming home. Tell the world that I'm coming. All right, okay. But yeah, I mean, he needs the confidence boost. Everybody's saying like, "Wow, okay, the goal record is pathetic.
He's garbage, dude.
It's absolutely pathetic." But to say that he's not going to come to the MLS and put up 15 goals is ridiculous.
He scored what, 4 goals outside of Holland in his like entire career.
Yeah, it's scary. But to say that. It's safe to say that the level of competition between Holland and the U.S. is pretty much.
Ooh.
Holland's might even be a little bit better.
Holland is better, but Holland is also where crap strikers go to get good scoring records.
Yeah,
and I think we found out that, in all honesty, Josie Altidore is a crap striker by the standards that we uphold at the show.
Yeah, to play in the best league in
MLS,
the world, he
national team. Different story. I mean, maybe it's good that Josie finally realized what level of competition he's at.
Yeah, it's so important because I think he's going to come in and do extremely well for Toronto.
He's just got to get playing time once again.
Because, I mean, there's so many things not to like. He's entering his prime. He's so big and strong. He's just going to come and dominate here in the MLS.
Yeah, I mean, here you have
for a second.
Here you have a 25-year-old striker. So you're right, entering his prime, and somebody who just hasn't gotten games. Past 2 years, he hasn't gotten club games.
He hasn't impressed the managers enough because he probably doesn't have the quality out on the training ground, to be quite honest with you. And then on top of that,
I mean, technically, I don't think he's technically Josie Altidore has never been a studying player.
And then when the options, when the chances have came, he's failed to put him away. That's bottom line. That's some pretty darn good chances. Yeah. And when you're just lacking confidence and you're in a funk. You're just in a funk, you do whatever you can. Sometimes you just need to see the ball touch the back of the net once,
right?
And that's all the confidence that you need. And it happened for him finally at the international level. We saw him against Nigeria leading up to the World Cup. Yep. And I think that
it's like Jekyll and Hyde with this guy between club and country. He just can't at the club, wherever he goes, he's just not good enough, and he doesn't play. And then for country, of course, well, he's our best striker by default. So he's going to play, but I just think it's a shame that Josie Altidore has spent so much of his formative years riding the bench and having the most game time in training as opposed to actual match time.
But I mean, this is going to be an extremely competitive environment for him because Toronto, as we know, has finally pulled out. They have legitimately pulled out every single stop that they can possibly find because. Adding Giovinco, and now you have Bradley, Altidore, and Giovinco.
You mean the MLS has pulled out every stop?
Toronto has, because Toronto, I'll tell you what, has never qualified for the playoffs in franchise history. They've been in the league for at least 7-8 years now. That's not okay.
Think about the system within MLS. Who decides who gets the players?
We can't get into the system of MLS.
Like all I'm saying
teams can, if they pay the money, they get the guy that they want.
We'll put this to bed. I will say this: Toronto FC has shown the financial wherewithal to pay the stars that MLS wants to bring over, and MLS has been certainly, willing to give them over to Toronto FC
because they haven't even sniffed any kind of success, man.
The league wants Toronto FC, I believe, to be a flagship, big time franchise.
For Canada, they have to expand it.
They got Drake over there. Canada's cool. Toronto's cool again. Let's make money up there.
Yeah, now you add Giovinco. I mean, it's championship or bust. I mean, watch them not make the playoffs again. Like, that would be
playoffs.
Like, honestly, the fact that they didn't make
Wait, what are you talking about? The fact that we don't discuss the playoffs on the other football, the English Premier League show. Although, actually, I'm a hypocrite. Didn't I spend, last month on a 5-minute rant about how there needs to be a playoff system in the Premiership?
Right.
I did. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, enough with playoffs and MLS and Josie Altidore. What were a few the big names that clubs acquired in the transfer window?
Well, I think one guy that kind of opened some eyes was Carlos Gil.
Yeah.
Gil from Valencia, who came over to Aston Villa, who scored a cracking goal.
That was in the cup. That was great. That was I watched that goal and I was like, Iron Robin's maybe done this 5 times in his career, and that's Iron Robin. It was one of those classic
FIFA-like shot. It was
FIFA-like because he cut in right on he was on the right wing. He's a lefty. He cut in on the right wing, right across the 18-yard box, and just kind of flicked his foot, and it just sailed beautifully with a lot of pace too in the upper left-hand corner. Unstoppable goal.
Yeah, it's going to be so huge for Aston Villa.
Yep, that's one player that Aston Villa needs.
Because, Christian Benteke can't score all their goals. He needs some help, and they have the worst scoring record in the Premier League, so they need another playmaker, another creator to give them a boost to save them.
And when you have the worst scoring record in the Premier League and you're only 3 points off the bottom,
you're sweating it out if you're Paul Lambert.
Yeah, but hopefully, at least for Aston Villa's sake and for Birmingham's sake, we can have Carlos Gil.
Right? Are we just going to start rooting for Aston Villa now because
we might have to start rooting for Birmingham?
I might have to. I don't mind. I don't mind at all.
Small Heath.
I don't mind it. Well,
all right, Inspector Campbell. What's next?
We've got. I mean, there's this real serious rumor that's come out of Manchester, out in Madrid. David De Gea could be gone to Real Madrid for £50 million.
£50 million, you say?
Can you believe that? I'll tell you what, though. That would be a scary move to me. It would bring some light as to why he would bring in Victor Valdez to be a backup keeper.
Right, who we thought was off to
I'm talking about,
off to Liverpool for the longest time.
Right. So Valdez is in, and you're looking at our goalkeeper of the future here. This is our guy that is supposed to be our Manchester United's #1 goalkeeper, similar to what Van der Sar had, what they had with the days with Peter Schmeichel. Those days where they had a #1, just like all the great teams, like when Arsenal had Jens Lehmann, and the list goes on, and Oliver Kahn. The list goes on and with great #1s, and he's going to be that guy. I
mean, and De Gea is a huge reason why you guys still have one of the best defensive records in the Premiership, despite only having reportedly one center back who Louis Van Gaal trusts in Marcos Rojo. Everyone else on your defense, your coach doesn't trust except for one center back and your keeper. And now that keeper might be off to Madrid, according to this crazy rumor.
Yeah, it's crazy because Casillas, obviously, we feel is washed. Casillas is washed. As much as we hate to say it,
he's washed.
And clearly they were not happy with the way Keylor Navas played against Atletico Madrid in the Copa del Rey. I think we both know he should have. Fernando Torres shouldn't have had a double. He shouldn't have had a double in that game. The first goal.
Let Fernando Torres score a double against you off to the curb.
The first finish was nice. Give him the credit, but the second goal was like, but Navas got a hand to it. It was pretty near him.
Yeah,
should have saved it.
But De Gea is one of those keepers. One of the best in the world, top 5. It's natural that Real Madrid would want to come for him. We only have a few minutes left, Rohtas. What else do we have to get to today?
We can just we touched on it last show. What the matchups are for next week.
So next week we have Premiership action returning.
Chelsea. What a great way to bring us back into it. And again, we've mentioned multiple times now it comes down to the African Cup of Nations and what City can do. They need to make up ground, and they need to make it up quick because they're going to be again without Yaya Toure, and they've tied. They've drawn 3 games and lost 1 when he's not in the lineup. And that's pretty much been the reason why they've fallen off the pace from Chelsea. Mm. So we're going to see how they can do without him. And is it at the Bridge or is it at Etihad?
I believe it's at the Bridge.
All right. So, it's going to be a great one. But we're going to, I think, expect Chelsea to come out and really give themselves a pretty good cushion as we start to head into the second half of the season.
Talking about cushioning already?
Well, yeah, it's a 5-point lead. Yeah. We're looking at pushing it to 8. They had it up to 8.
Chelsea win this game, the title race might be effectively dead.
Yeah, because,
never say never, but it looks that way.
Because City did come back, they tied it, but then again, it didn't take long for Chelsea to take the lead.
I will say this: we're running out of time, but I would watch for Chelsea on set piece goals. I believe they lead the league in set piece goals this weekend, and with a few big bodies out for Manchester City, Chelsea might be able to steal some there. Chelsea also play Liverpool tomorrow at 2:45. Second leg of the League Cup. Let's get Gerrard to Wembley, right?
Should be a dandy, absolutely.
You are all welcome for listening to The Other Football on WNYU 89.1 FM. Rohtas, are we out this week?
We're out.
We're out.
By the order of the Peaky Blinders.
By order of the Peaky Blinders. Passport is coming up next on WNYU 81.1 FM. You've been tuning in.
89.1.
89, guys, 89.
I know.
Yo.
How's it going?
Yep.